Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story and we put the spotlight on you. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. And he is now a retired pastor and currently a podcaster. The same can happen to you. Check out my website and see what I offer that can be encouraging, inspiring, and transforming to you. It may be a book or a virtual consultation. And while at the website, get a t shirt or cap that says encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. I'm available for speaking engagements, in person, and virtual seminars. Please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me today Tracy Herbert, who at 17 years old, lying in a hospital bed fighting for her life, when the doctor told her that she had a disease with no cure and would die within 20 years, developing multiple complications like going blind and amputations. He said, "You'll never be able to have children," and quickly left the room without allowing her to ask any questions, and most importantly, leaving her without hope. She has a story that you must hear, and I'm excited to have her share with us today. Uh, Tracy, uh, it's good to have you with us today as we share with listeners of this podcast. I want to first ask you to share with listeners a little bit about yourself and where you're being interviewed from, and then we'll get into a little bit more about your uh, story as we share today.
Fantastic. It's so great to be here. So nice to meet you face to face, virtually, however you want to say it. It's just so much better when we can connect. And it's like having a cup of coffee with an old friend. And because I've been listening to your podcast, I feel like we're old friends. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you.
As you said, I'm Tracy Herbert. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm a sixth generation Texan, which that's a very prideful thing in our family to be able to say that because there's very few people like that. So that's my claim to fame is I'm a sixth generation Texan.
All right. I note from your uh, profile that for the past 47 years, since that horrific day that we've just talked about, you've been researching and applying strategies for living a longer and healthier life. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
It started, like you said, I was 17 years old lying in a hospital bed and I had no hope. I mean, the doctor literally walks in with his hands on his hips and he said, "Young lady, you have juvenile diabetes and you're going to be dead in 20 years and you're going to die with horrible complications." And he went on to say all the horrible things that were going to happen to me. And then, like you said, he turned around and left and I had so many questions, but most importantly, I had no hope. I literally had no hope. And so I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks because it's a lifelong journey to learn how to give yourself insulin and learning what you can and can't eat, especially back then in the mid 70s. And I got out of the hospital and we ended up going, my friends and I went to a movie. And as I'm running out the door, my mom's reminding me, "Tracy, remember you can't eat anything." And she didn't say it to be mean or because we didn't have money, but back then you were on a very, very strict, I called it starvation diet. And I went to the movie theater and you walk in and what's the first thing you smell? Popcorn, right? And everybody's hungry for popcorn now. I got it, but I walked up to the concession stand clerk and I asked for a cup so I could get a drink of water out of the fountain because I didn't want to be different. I wanted to have something. All my friends were ordering the Cokes and the candy and all that stuff. And she looked at me, the concession stand clerk, like I was from outer space. And I said, no, I'll be glad to pay for it. And she said, "No, you can't have it." And this was several weeks after I'd been out of the hospital. And I guess all the depression, the anxiety, I just started crying. I'm running out to the parking lot screaming, "Why me and why me? Why is this happening to me? I don't deserve it." I got home and I was laying in bed sobbing. I mean, 17 years old. And I said, Tracy, you have two choices. You can be better or you can be bitter. What are you
Mm.
going to choose? And at that moment, my life changed. And every day I strive to be better and not bitter. And so I started actually sneaking in to a college medical school library. This was way before the internet. I mean, this was a long time ago. And they all knew I was a high school senior, but they let me in because I was very quiet. And I would get medical school textbooks and I would start reading everything I could, not just about diabetes, but most
Mm.
importantly, what I could do to live a healthy life. And now it's so funny because when I meet doctors, especially when I'm speaking in a large group in an audience, the first thing they'll come up to me and say when I get off the stage is, how are you still alive and what are you doing? And so I start telling them these strategies and they're like, this is amazing. Well, my endocrinologist, which is a doctor that
Mhm.
specializes in treating people with diabetes, he's the one that had me write my first book because he said, Tracy, you've got to get this out there. He says, I've got the book knowledge, but
Mhm.
you've got the life knowledge. And so I still research, back to your question, I
Mhm.
still research every single day because not only does it help me, because it's not about me, it's about what I can do to not just help other people have hope, because again, I didn't have hope, but how they can also live a longer, healthier life.
Mm.
And because of these strategies I've been developing for 47 years, not only I have no complications. Most importantly, I have two kids and I'm a grandmother, which wasn't even supposed to happen.
Mm.
And so every decade I do something crazy and fun to celebrate. Because again, I don't want to be bitter. Okay, after my 20th, the 20th decade of living with, or the 20th year of living with diabetes, I did a bicycle ride. The next 10 years later, I did a triathlon. And then as my 40th anniversary of my diagnosis, I started thinking, what can I do? And I decided I'm going to go for a bike ride. So I went from San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge all the way to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, ending on the Dr. Oz show at 3,527 miles. And I started my journey to celebrate that I was still alive. But then I started seeing the people that lives were impacted, not because of me, but because I did something, because I didn't feel sorry for myself. And I started saying, I can do it. And using the strategies I've discovered for the last 47 years, it made it possible. And so that's what was so amazing about my feat is people keep saying, how are you doing this? I have more energy in my mid 60s than I even had in my 30s. And it's so simple to do. It's just mind boggling. I'm going to go, hopefully, we get a chance to talk
Yeah,
about that.
Tracy is interesting. I mean, your story is very inspiring. I have to admit, you you. I know you have taken control of your health, your life. So tell listeners of this podcast, what is the number one key to taking control, of your health? Obviously, there was something that you would had to conquer or overcome or something to that effect to make you just say, "Look, I'm going to get beyond what the doctor has told me." What was it?
Mm-hmm. It took me some time to think about it, and I actually didn't even think about it until I started writing my book.
Okay.
7 or 8 years ago. But the thing is, it's the 3M formula. And if you don't hear anything else today, y'all, listen to this one thing. 3M formula. The first one is mind. You have to have the right mindset. And once I changed my mindset from, oh, my life is horrible, I'm depressed, my
Mhm.
life is over, and I started saying, no, I'm going to choose being better. That was the number one thing that got me really going on this journey for the last 47 years of researching. And the second thing is mouth. We learn to eat to live. We don't live to eat. And it
Mm.
changed again my life. And people always say, well, I don't have diabetes, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm like, hey, forget it. If you want more energy, you start eating the right kind of foods that help you and doesn't hurt you. And it's mind boggling. And then the third M is move. We have to get
Mm.
off our chairs and move more. And one of the questions everyone always asks me, whether it's on TV or podcast, is, how did you train to ride your bicycle across the United States? And I said, every day since about the first or second month after my diagnosis, again at age 17, I've been doing something for my health. for exercise. I either go for walks, I run, I ride bicycles. I mean, I do it all. I swim, things like that that really help me stay focused. And when you enjoy doing some kind of exercise, you're going to do it over and over again. And so I try to help people to realize, you may not want to ride your bicycle across the country, but find something you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you do it over and over again. But if you notice the same thing, it all goes back to the mindset.
Hmm.
Once you have the right mindset, then your life starts changing. And that's the number one key for everything in life, I think, is having the right mindset.
Tracy, I have to admit, riding a bicycle 3,527 miles is a long way. It takes a whole lot to do that. And I know listeners of this podcast is going to say, "Wow, all the way from California to, well, what you say, the Golden State Bridge? Is that what you said?"
The
Yeah,
Golden State Bridge, yeah,
yeah,
to the
Golden
Brooklyn
State
Bridge.
Bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Uh-huh.
That's that. I've been to
Go.
both of them, so I know exactly, I know
Mhm.
exactly where they
So I
are.
started at the
So,
Pacific and I ended at the Atlantic. That's how it
oh
was.
wow,
It was
what
amazing.
what inspired you to ride your bicycle that distance? What was it that did it for you? Was it just to say, my I know I've got to get a hold of my health, that this 3 M's you're talking about, is that
Mhm.
what part of it was?
Well, to be quite honest, I was walking around a church parking lot, and I have to get away from technology. And actually I was praying about, what's the next thing? And I can't say it was God. I can't. It's not
Mhm.
like God, you and I are talking, but I just had that gut feeling that I needed to go for across the country. And I was going to
Mhm.
walk, and then I thought, "Oh, I'd rather ride my bike." So that's what made me really start thinking about it. And again, I did it to celebrate. And then I started meeting people along the way. It's just amazing, all the people I met throughout this country that would give me water just when I'm stopped on a stop sign, or, they bring me food and just say, "Hey," cheering at me when I'm going up these huge mountains. I'm a Texan. We have no mountains in Texas, but, it was tough in California because, it was record heat wave, and I'm going up these high, high mountains. People would honk their horns and say, "You've got it. You can do it." People were encouraging me throughout the ride. And it just every day I got stronger and stronger. And I met a little boy in Chicago. He and his mother came and had dinner with us. And he said, "Oh, you know what? I've never met anybody with type 1 diabetes. He also has type 1 diabetes." And so he and I became friends throughout the ride. And I would visualize these kids, a little 6-year-old girl, her and her mom started hearing about my story, and they went and got a map of the United States, and she cut out a picture of a bicycle and moved me throughout the ride. And I kept saying, "These little kids are on my bike with me. I'm carrying them." Because I was at a point, this was in 2017, and I kept thinking,
Mhm.
you know, there's not much good happening in the world, because all I kept hearing about was all the bad things. And I'm thinking, "Tracy, change your mindset."
Hmm.
And by the time I got off this ride, or when I finished the ride, I kept saying, there are so many amazing people that I was so blessed to come in contact with, that it was just a wonderful. I kept people saying, "Tracy, you've encouraged me." And I'm like, "No, no, no, you've encouraged me." From a lady in Nebraska, and it was record heat throughout my ride. And she was the one that was stopping traffic and waving, people on and stuff, because there was
Mhm.
road construction. She gave me the last bottle out of her cooler. And she said, "I'm going to give you a couple seconds start. I'm going to hold everybody back. You keep going." And I said, "No, I don't want to take your water." She says, "Girl, you're doing something for me. So keep going."
Hmm.
That's the kind of, when we work together, when we encourage each other, we're so much stronger. And it doesn't matter your setback. It doesn't matter your diagnosis, but together we're so much stronger. And when we encourage each other, because we're all going through some struggles in life,
Mhm.
and that's what really transpired in my life when I got done with the bicycle ride, is, you know what? This world is a great place again. I changed my mindset.
Well, you are so intriguing and so inspiring. I'm a minister, pastor for 32 years almost.
Wow.
I'm retired now, But one of the reasons I started my podcast was to continue to encourage, inspire, and hopefully transform lives. And I've looked for guests who have those kind of stories. And your story is one that really fits right into what I do, and I do appreciate you sharing it today. So if you had, or if I have, and I know I do have listeners of this podcast who are going through some challenges in life. They have some difficulties that they may be facing, whether it's health or some other
Mm-hmm.
situation that they find themselves in. Uh, and you've probably already done it, you know, but in as brief as you possibly can you share with them, something that will motivate, inspire, encourage, whatever that will help them get through whatever they're dealing with?
Don't ever lose hope. No
Mm,
matter how tough things seem, no matter what setbacks you're currently having, stop, take a deep breath. If you're faithful, then you pray. I mean, that's really
mhm,
helped me out throughout my whole entire life. But take some time and find something motivational to read.
mhm,
It's we have to get out of the negative mindset. But when we don't have hope and we're hopeless, then life doesn't seem very fun. And
mm,
so even I'm a very optimistic person. I even get down the dumps and I'll get
mhm,
back and I read the Bible or I read motivational things. I listen to music that makes me happy and not sad. Even if it's a diagnosis that the doctors all tell you the same thing, this is really, really bad. You're probably not going to live through this. Then I would just hope that you would think, hey, I remember that girl that I heard. Girl,
mm,
I'm 65 years old. I don't say it like that, but I hope that girl
mhm,
that I just heard about, you know, she was told she's going to be dead in 20 years.
mm.
And I'm not dead. She wasn't dead. I mean,
Okay.
the doctors don't know what the outcome's going to be. They don't know.
Mm,
And no matter what your outcome is or your setback, financial setback, a marriage crumbling, whatever that is, don't lose hope. Take time to find something that's going to motivate you and hang around people, your people. That's so important because you have to have the people with the right mindset, not the negative people. We all have
mhm,
those in our lives, but spend more time with those people that encourage you and not bring you down.
mm. Well, your profile even talks about that as I was looking at it, and you said something to the effect that my message and mission are about providing
Mm-hmm.
hope. So I hope listeners of this podcast will really get that. I've gone through some situations in my own life that I, you know, really was down, and it was because of that hope, perseverance that brought me through it. So I really understand exactly what you are talking about. Let me ask you this: what are some keys to living a longer, healthier life? Because obviously you've done it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think listeners of this podcast will want to, know a little bit about that. Could you tell them?
Mm, absolutely. How many hours do we have? Just kidding.
Okay.
You got to laugh in life. That's good for your heart. That's good for your heart and
Yeah.
health to laugh and laugh and laugh. Anyway, the important thing is do what works best for you because we're
Okay.
all so different. Everybody is made, even identical twins have different things inside their bodies that are different. And when you really start realizing the foods that help you and doesn't hurt you, staying away from the processed foods is so important. And I'm not the only person, but when you go out and you have, say, pizza or something,
Hmm.
and a couple hours later, you're tanking because you're tired. And what
Hmm.
is very interesting is, and this happens for everybody with or without diabetes, but your blood sugar spikes and then it crashes. And when you crash, that's when you go in and start wanting to eat things like donuts and cupcakes or
Oh.
whatever it is for you. But what really works, and this works almost on any case that you ever have. So say you're addicted to, I'm just going to say donut since I mentioned that a minute ago.
So ice
When
cream.
you vision, Okay, ice cream. There you go. So I was actually addicted, in my opinion, addicted to hot fudge sundaes when I was diagnosed. And of
Mhm.
course, I knew I'd never have another hot fudge sundae again. So I would imagine broken up ice in
Mm.
my hot fudge sundae. And then I would visualize myself eating it. And I would think, ooh, it's cutting up my throat. Oh, it's cutting up my stomach. Ooh, it's killing me. And so I visualize that. Or like pizza, you imagine mice, rats running across it and using the restroom on it. It really is a simple strategy when you need to stay away from the foods. And you know what? You don't have to do it all the time, but start doing it more and more, and then start seeing how your body feels and how much more energy you have. And stay away from those foods that spike your blood sugar, again, with or without diabetes. And
Mm.
then I'm a big salad person. I love vegetables. I was not that way, but now I choose to eat those because I have more energy. And then when I do have to go eat something that I don't typically eat, the rest of the afternoon and evening, I might as well just not work or might as well do anything because I'm so lethargic. So find what works best for you and try it, and don't expect a miracle change overnight. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't expect that. Well, I guess
Mhm.
you could, but you want to start spending time thinking about, this week maybe I'll choose to, instead of eating a cup of ice cream or whatever,
Mhm.
I'm going to have an apple instead. Or
Okay.
instead of going out and having, oh, I don't know, whatever your choice of food is, maybe I'll stay home and have like some salmon and a salad. Not only
Okay.
does it save money, but you start feeling so much better. It is crazy when I talk to people, especially my clients, and they start making these changes. They're like, oh, how do I do it? I mean, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then a week later, they're like, huh, this is easier than I thought.
Mm.
And then you want to get off your chairs and move more, especially if you're feeling hopeless, because exercise is so important for having improving your mindset, improving, because you get those endorphins coming in.
Mhm.
And if I can can I share a story about a lady that I met along the ride? Can I share that real quick?
Mhm. Sure. Sure.
So I'm going to call her name Sally, but I met her in Sacramento. I was waiting for the light to turn green, and I just happened to notice her sitting at the bus stop. And I just had that gut feeling to go talk to her. And she was the sweetest looking lady. She was probably in her early 30s, morbidly obese. And she started telling me that I'm waiting for my brother to come pick me up. I live across, right around the block. And I said, I just can't imagine not being able to walk home. But okay. So I said, well, so she and I started kind of talking a few minutes, and everything I started saying, I said, you know, can you go down the end of the street? No, I can't. Can you go to your next door neighbors? No, I can't. Everything was, I can't. And then I said, could you walk into your driveway? And just for a second, she said, I think I can. And so
Mhm.
I gave her some strategies, rest at the end of the driveway, walk back. I got an email from her just before I was going into New York City. And she said, not only have I lost so much weight, which I wasn't expecting to, she
Mhm.
said, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. Y'all,
Oh,
that's
wow.
3.1 miles. The same lady in her early 30s could not even walk around a quarter of a block to go home. Her life changed. She didn't even change what she ate. I mean, it's just, she started having some hope. And again, you're going
Mhm.
to always hear me say it,
Mm.
without
Hope.
hope, we have nothing.
Hope. Hope. I love that word. Hope. I'm going to keep repeating it, listeners. Hope. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Hope. Uh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, don't go into place, listeners. Please stay around because we have a couple more questions and conversation we're having with Tracy. But let me ask Tracy if listeners of this podcast would like to get your books or some more information about you, would you share with them how they can get more information on you or your books or whatever?
Absolutely. I have free resources. Again, I'm all about helping people. It's much more important to help the world. I have free resources and information about my books on my website, tracyherbert.com. Now there's no E, TracyHerbert.com. And of course you can go to get all three of my books at, on Amazon, the typical places like you
Hmm.
can go. But,
Hmm.
um, it's so important though, you look over some of these free resources and something is going to say, oh, wait a minute, that's going to change me. That could help me get from this point to the next point.
Hmm.
And small steps equals big changes. You don't have to set out tomorrow to run a marathon or ride your bike across the country unless you want to.
Hmm.
What you want to do though is go for a walk. Just do something simple like that. I'm on all the social media platforms. I post every day. I give some kind of tips. I give some kind of hope. I It's all about helping people realize what's possible because together we're stronger. And I hope your listeners and I can stay connected, and I hope you and I can stay connected as well.
Beautiful. Well said. You talked about this 3M formula, and it has stuck in my mind. I can't get it out. And I'm certain that listeners want to hear it one more time. So, could you just
Mm-hmm.
talk about this 3M formula and why it is important? First of all, let us know what it is. Again, you said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Mm-hmm.
mine, but so much goes through it, and so we want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that it's clear with them. So tell us a little bit about that again.
Okay. And what's so important is they all work together. And I'll explain that at the end. But the
Hmm.
three M's are mind. You have to have the right mindset and be willing to make those changes, to be able to say, I can do this. I go from I can't to I can, or better to bitter, or
Hmm.
bitter to better.
Yeah.
You have to have those things. And then mouth. You have to learn to eat to live. Don't
Hmm.
live to eat. So just think
Hmm.
about, what are you putting in your mouth? Is it helping your body or is it hurting your body?
Hmm.
And move. Get off your chairs and move more. And when you have these three all working together synergistically, you have your mindset and then you have mouth. But let's say you eat the wrong kind of foods. Well, then you're not going to probably want to get out and go for a walk because, like I said, I get lethargic and I'm sure everybody does. But then when you go for a walk, but you don't want to have the right mindset and think this isn't fun, or you don't stop and smell the roses, so to speak, you know, those, it's so important to do all three of those together. Now, do I say change everything overnight? Of course not. Again,
Hmm.
small steps equal big changes. But start with one thing, and always, if you can, always start with a mind. You do you. This is what works for me and so many of the people I've helped over the years. But you do your mind, you make your mind, and you can tell yourself tonight when you go to bed, you can put your pair of shoes outside or tennis shoes outside of your bed and say, I'm going for a walk tomorrow, no matter what. Or I'm going to get rid of all my junk food and only eat twice a week. I'm going to have something that's unhealthy, ice cream or whatever that is. But you got to have the right mind to say, I'm going to make these changes. I can do it. I'm a visual person. I put, notes over things when I'm trying to work on something, stress. We all have stress. I am not going to allow stress to overtake me today. I'm going to do this, this, and this to avoid stress. So find things that work for you. Again, eat the foods that help you, that doesn't hurt you, but find exercises you enjoy. Because if you enjoy it, you're going to do it over and over again. Park the car further away. So many people wait forever for that front row parking spot. You lose because it's not good for your health. Park further away as long as it's safe. I mean, there's times in the evenings you don't want to do those kind
Yeah.
of things, but park further away and then walk to the store, walk fast.
Mm.
If you can go in just to get a few things at the grocery store, don't get a basket. Get those little shopping carts. People laugh at me all the time. I don't care, but I even do some curls with the food in my, the little
Mhm.
baskets that you can
Mhm.
get.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
all sorts of things. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. But
Well,
keep the bad food at the back of the refrigerator or the back of the pantry, because if it's the focus, if you see it, you're going to want it. You might have to change the way you drive. You might go to the same place, you drive the same way to, work or church or the park or whatever. You may have to make a change if that is the donut store, the cupcake place, or the ice cream store. And so you don't get driving around, because we all get tempted. But
mm,
when we get tempted, we can start developing those self-control muscles that says, I'm not going to do it. I'm stronger than you. And I speak the words out loud all the time when I want something, because I'm human. We all want to eat things that aren't good for us. So 3 M's: mind, mouth, and move.
well said.
That will
Well said.
transform your life.
Well said. As we get close to ending our great conversation this morning, I know there are lots of people, and especially it's very prevalent within the African American folk, diabetes. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, why is it increasing so quickly? And what are the risk factors, or how can you reduce the risk factors? Could you share a little bit about that? Because I know a lot of
Absolutely.
listeners of this podcast suffer with that particular illness.
And what's even scarier, you're right, it's an epidemic proportion throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
But 1 out of 3 Americans have prediabetes and don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. They don't even know it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's several kinds of diabetes. I'm just going to go just a very, very high, view of it. Type 1, which is what I have, juvenile diabetes is what it used to be called. You have to take insulin immediately because without insulin, I will die. And I still have it, and I'll have it until the day I die or until I'm cured. I mean, whichever comes first,
Mm-hmm.
And then type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset, that's the one that's typically, not always, typically caused by lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Not moving as much, not eating the right kind of foods. Not always, but typically. And so, what I tell everybody is if you don't have diabetes, congratulate yourself because you don't want them. But if you have it, you can do things right now to, you know, change your A1, your blood sugar, A1C. People
Mm-hmm.
with diabetes know what that A1C number is
Mm-hmm.
because if I can do it, anybody can do it. And there's just simple things. You got to get rid of that processed food because the processed food, I feel, is the biggest killer in this nation. And that's why we have the epidemic rise of diabetes. I know it is because you can't continue to eat this way. We're not made this way. You don't eat this kind of food and expect over 40 years or 50 years or 60 years, it's not going to change. And now even children are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which was unheard of, 40 years ago. It's crazy how dangerous it is. And, you can have your legs amputated, you can have your toes amputated, heart disease, kidney transplants, you go blind. I mean, all the things that were guaranteed to happen to me didn't because I took control and I said, nope, not on my watch. Again, my faith is very important, and
Mm-hmm.
there's reasons why I believe I'm still here. But I know for one thing is anybody can do it, make small changes, but the diabetes is prevalent throughout this whole entire world. And it's something that's very scary. But if you are diagnosed with it, don't be scared. What can I do today to start making changes? I love when I work with people with diabetes and they go to their doctor's office for their 3 month A1C test. And
Mm-hmm.
the doctors are like, whoa, what happened to you? You've lost weight. Look at your numbers. Your numbers are back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, just a few things. Just ask Tracy.
Right.
Anyway, and
Well,
that's what it is. But it takes time.
well said. As we close, I want to ask you one thing because I know that you are a certified health and wellness coach now. What
Mhm.
inspired you to do that?
It was a very interesting thing. I've always loved fitness. And I met a lady one day who had lost her husband, and she was socioeconomic challenge. She didn't have a penny to her name. And I kept trying to encourage her to get some help with her weight and stuff. She and I would walk together. And then I started thinking, you know what? I should do this. I should become certified. I'm a certified, wellness coach, certified, like you say, personal trainer, weight loss specialist,
Mm-hmm.
senior aging, specialist. But I started thinking about it. I thought, I need to know the facts. I need to know what is true because so much out there is not true. And so I got it for this one lady, and that's the reason. And then from there, it just blossomed.
Okay.
I've done a ministry for decades to help women who can't afford the help that they need when they don't have the funds to pay for it. And it's just something because I am a firm believer now. If I could get rid of my diabetes, absolutely I would. I was taking 9 shots every day. Now I'm on an insulin pump. It's a little bit easier. So I have kind of the worst of the worst is what they call my diabetes, but I'm flatlined. I mean, it's so crazy, which is a good thing for diabetes, not
Mm-hmm.
so much in the hospital, but so many people do this and this, but my heart is for people who don't have hope. obviously.
Mm,
But, if I were cured today or tomorrow, I don't know if I'd be happy as much because I learned what it went from being hopeless to having so much hope. And that's why I just every day talk to people about you got to have hope.
mm,
Because so I think it was a blessing, actually. If you want to hear my story, my actual story, now that I look back at it 47 years later, it was
mm.
a blessing that this happened to me because I took and ran. But to answer your question, that's why I became certified because I knew it for myself. And then I started realizing, oh, wow, I should do this and I should do this. And the rest, so they say, is history.
Mm. Well, there you have it. Tracy Herbert, who is a leading authority on health and wellness, transformational health and longevity coach, professional speaker, best-selling author, podcast host, and diabetes advocate. She is a sought after
Mm.
speaker and a frequent guest on TV shows. You need to hear what Tracy has to say. Again, Tracy, thank you so much for being a part
Oh,
of
thank
our
you.
uh, podcast today. You have been very inspiring, encouraging, and I know transformational to so many folk. We are grateful that you decided to be a part of the Deal by Me podcast.
Thank you so much.